2019 was an interesting year for Xiaomi smartphones, and I was fortunate enough to get to own basically all of the flagship or top tier spec phones Xiaomi made in 2019. And this is what I think about them. Now, 2019 was an interesting year as we had the release of the Snapdragon 855 in February, but in January and the months leading up to that, really one of the best spec phones that you could get from Xiaomi was the Poco F1. It had most of the same core fundamental specs as the Xiaomi Mi 8, but it had a much bigger battery. Now, in the first quarter of 2019, I must say that really the place that the Poco F1 shined, in my opinion, was the quickness of updates for the Xiaomi EU ROM and the amount of development that I got to see happen on the Poco F1 without really doing any kind of serious altercations to the overall user experience. And what I mean by that is because the ROMs that I use on all my devices are based on the beta builds of the Chinese ROM with a little bit of tweaks, I get to see what coming features are going to be getting brought to the rest of the Xiaomi lineup before they're officially released. And really in the beginning of 2019, I must say that the overall user experience of my Poco F1 in regards to the ROM I was using, the MIUI experience, the Google integrations, the Gcam updates became increasingly more stable, more refined, and really up to the point right now, we still see a lot of development for the Poco F1 on both the ROM side as well as the camera side. With the launch and the release of the Snapdragon 855, Xiaomi wanted to be one of the first companies to do so, and I got my hands and got to own a Xiaomi Mi 9. And I must say that the Xiaomi Mi 9 in a lot of ways was a really frustrating device to use. While the main camera, the IMX568, was a tangible upgrade, for things like low light and dynamic range, they weren't as big of a step above the IMX363 that we had in the Poco F1 for me to really call it a substantial upgrade. The area that the Xiaomi Mi 9 was really impressive to me, though, was the quality of its ultra-wide camera as well as its telephoto camera, which I will still say are better than what we have on the K20 Pro. The Mi 9 had Xiaomi's flagship camera arrangement going into 2019. The Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite, which was a somewhat stripped back version of the Xiaomi Mi 9, or I believe it might have been the Mi 9 SE, those had slightly different cameras, and that's what we ended up getting on the Redmi K20 Pro, or the Xiaomi Mi 9T, which is the device that I'm still using up to this day. Now, going from the Xiaomi Mi 9, which really impressed me in regards to charging speed, overall kind of device smoothness. Now, the move from the Xiaomi Mi 9 to the Redmi K20 Pro, at least for me, I felt like it was a distinct downgrade in a couple of areas. First, the haptics and overall feel in the hand of the Xiaomi Mi 9 compared to the Redmi K20 Pro were really uncomparable. The Redmi K20 Pro, at least my version and my friend's version, they all had some kind of weird rattles. The haptics motor wasn't particularly good. And the overall user experience felt a lot like a piece of hardware with kind of beta software. On top of that, Xiaomi's way of addressing the screen jitter issue on this device on launch gave us at first a device that was really, really responsive to our touch input. But then after people complained about touch jitter, Xiaomi went ahead and changed some of the settings on the screen to kind of get around the touch jitter, which is going to inevitably come with an AMOLED display phone. But in doing so, and for users such as myself that had bought the K20 Pro essentially on release day here in Vietnam, the device went from feeling really, really smooth and responsive with the screen that it had to being tangibly worse. Now, the K20 Pro wasn't all bad things, though. The in-display fingerprint scanner compared to the Mi 9 was a big jump. The inclusion of the headphone jack was really nice, although to this day, I think I've maybe used the headphone jack on this device 7 or 8 times. Overall use of a pop-up motorized camera, to me, just seemed like kind of a gimmick. And now with the K30 Pro and some of Xiaomi's other devices, we see Xiaomi moving away from having the motorized camera. Whether or not this is a good or bad thing is left up to the users, But personally, I preferred the notch that we had on the Xiaomi Mi 9. I thought it took up the least amount of space and was the least intrusive to my overall usage experience. Now, the K20 Pro for me has been a very good and impressive device in a couple of ways. The battery life for it has been great. I think that the screen brightness has been good, although it could be better. And to this day, I still get over 9 hours of screen on time with how I've treated my batteries. So when I do need to have that full capacity battery, I charge it up to 100%. When I don't need it, the battery never gets charged really above 80, 85%, and I never drain it below 20%. And so taking care of the battery like that has left me with a device that's got incredibly good battery life 4 or 5 months down the line. The next flagship device I'm using from Xiaomi is the Xiaomi Mi Note 10. And if I compare all of the devices that I've had from Xiaomi over the last 3 or 4 years, being the Xiaomi Mi 5S Plus, the Xiaomi Mi A1, the Xiaomi A2, the Xiaomi Poco F1, the Redmi K20 Pro, the Mi 9, and the Xiaomi Mi Note 10, I have to say that the device that to me sticks out more than anything else is the Mi Note 10, which is the device I'm currently testing right now. And the Mi Note 10, in my opinion, stands out from the K20 Pro and the Mi 9 even in a couple of ways. The inclusion of such a full-featured camera array on this device, in my opinion, totally makes up for the fact that it's using a Snapdragon 730G. For day-to-day performance and things that I actually use the device for in the real world, being light gaming, social media, cameras, and etc., the Mi Note 10 has been absolutely fine. There hasn't really been much in the way of stutters or jitters when using the device. It's been amazing for battery life, getting me over 2 days of usage. And on top of that, the screen is brighter than what we have on the K20 Pro, and the actual usage of the device in the real world, outside of a controlled environment, is a device that is visible in most lighting conditions, is fast enough for all of the things I need the device for, and on top of that, 2 days of battery life with the best camera you can currently get right now on the market. Now, we see that Xiaomi has given the K30 and the K30 Pro a slight downgrade in cameras to what we have right now. Whether or not the 64 megapixel Sony sensor is going to compete with the 108 megapixel Samsung sensor is left up to be seen. But right now, if you want the best camera on a Xiaomi device, or pretty much any other smartphone out there, you're going to want to get the Mi Note 10. And I don't see Xiaomi giving other competing devices in their lineup that camera array if it's not the Xiaomi Mi 10. I see the Mi 10 getting the same camera array or possibly a better camera array because it's going to give the device a more flagship feel. In fact, the reason that I call the Mi Note 10 a flagship right now is that I think for most people, it's going to offer a flagship experience, being speed and performance, camera, screen, and build quality. So I'm really interested to see what Xiaomi brings out with the Mi 10, what flagship Xiaomi devices you've used in 2019 and what your favorite has been. I've been fortunate enough to get to own most of them and use them extensively. And like always, if you guys want to see reviews, you can check out reviews of all this stuff here. I'll have a link to my Mi 9 review, a link to my K20 Pro review, and a link to a Gcam overview on the K20 Pro. Okay, till next time, it's been Mitchell coming to you guys from Hanoi. Peace.